What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of Amazon Prime's original series, Invincible. This will, of course, follow part 2, but it'll follow the first episode, which is season 2, episode 5, which is called This Must Come as a Shock. Okay, spoiler discussion all around. Just make you aware, if you haven't seen this episode, you clearly should watch the episode before watching my review, but I'm going to spoiler details about this episode. So, I mean, at this point, the holy crap moments keep coming in this episode, especially. If it's true, rest in peace, Duplicate, and of course, Shrinking Ray. What a way to go out. Duplicate, of course, was devoured into a billion different pieces, and of course Shrinking Ray was swallowed and eaten by that big creature guy. I can't remember what his name was, a part of the Lizard League. And it just kind of figures, because the thing about the Guardians of the Globe that has been apparent through this entire series is they're just not very good superheroes at their job. And Rex is in charge of these trying to take down the Lizard League, and even he gets his hand chewed off, I guess. It's quite the episode, to be fairly honest. You know, it's a way to come back. Of course, at the end of the fourth episode, before part 1 ended, Nolan is taken by the Vitramites to be executed. Of course, Mark learns that he has a son with a weird kind of mantis race that apparently ages very quickly. And it's an episode that is prepping up like the big kind of conclusion to the season. And it's definitely an Invincible episode. You know, it's quite well done. It's well presented. It's interesting to watch. You know, of course, Mark helps out this group of individuals who have been decimated by the Vitramites, and he spends 2 months on the planet. You know, of course, you would think Nolan would be executed within that 2 months, but this is a comic book series, so anything's possible. So at this point, Mark is basically helping them to recover, I guess. And I thought it was very poignant, even though it's very weird that Nolan had relations with this kind of weird bug-like creature. The fact that she wants Mark to take the kid, and that the kid definitely ages quicker than he does, and the fact that these bug-like creatures are basically at the end of their life stage or their life cycle, where they are going to have to move on to the next generation. And there's something completely sad about that, to be fairly honest. It's something kind of it's just melancholy, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. And you watch as it plays out, and you realize, these creatures, they'll rebuild, they'll have different generations. But just the way she says, by the time this kid learns to talk, my generation will be over, and by the time this kid grows up, be multi-generational generations and stuff like that. And I found that really fascinating on just kind of a thinking man's way of thinking when it comes to like life and death and stuff like that. So it was a really interesting thing. And on top of everything, he's taking the kid who he brings to his mother, of course, Deborah learns that, Nolan is alive and has a kid. And somehow she is woman enough to take care of the kid, even though the kid doesn't want human food. And Mark, going off to school, to see his friends and stuff like that, to, basically visit his woman, Amber, his girlfriend. And, I find that sometimes this series really is poignant when it comes to that kind of stuff. Just the fact that Deborah, who was so angry with Nolan and what he did to not only this earth and what he did to their relationship and how he used and abused the relationship, and she's still willing to take care of this young kid, is a facet of how good of a person she really is and how much she cares about her son and stuff like that. And it's really funny that Mark finally gets time to rest, and then he's called on by, of course, the guy who's in control of the Guardians of the Globe, Cecil Stedman's character, and they basically throw him into another mission to go to take care of Shadesmith, who is revealed to be a Martian, as we've learned. And it's a really really kind of funny thing, because once again, Amber's just like, all right, I guess you have to go. And I don't know, I found it really funny and really just what Invincible is known for doing. Mark is an individual that's so torn between like having to be controlled by his commanders, and then on top of that, trying to have a relationship with Amber, which is not going very well. And the same thing with Adam, Eve, and stuff like that, where she is trying to have a relationship with her family, which is not going very well. And then on top of everything, Rex comes by and asks her for help, but also apologizes for everything he's done. And it's kind of a nice thing, but there's always a motive to Rex's character, which I thought was kind of funny. But like I said, on the other side of the thing, we see the Guardians of the Globe, which include, Mortal, who's in charge of them, and you see, Duplicate, and you see, of course, Monster Girl and Rex, and all these characters, Shapesmith, and all those these characters learning how to work together. And once again, they are a terrible team. It's a running joke almost in this series that the Guardians of the Globe are just a terrible group of individuals when it comes to being performative when it comes to their work. I think it's funny how Ruby Connor's robot character is like so protective of Monster Girl, and she yells at him and stuff like that. It's and you watch how Invincible or Immortal is just not really, he doesn't really care, to be fairly honest, but he is Ruby is an individual who really tries to care, and it's an interesting thing to watch. But like I said, they basically come to terms with Shapesmith, who reveals that he's a Martian, and he made a he made a mistake where he was being attacked by these things called the Sequid. I think it's Sequid or Sequid. They're basically brain legion characters. Think of something like in whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow thing with Brainiac and stuff like that. It's these things that connect to the Martians and control like leeches and stuff like that, like brain organisms. But I really enjoyed that with the idea of like now these guys have to go and stop another evil creature that has taken over the Martians, and they have to go to whatever to ship that's being towards Earth and stuff like that. And as it always does, it doesn't go very well. They take a rocket off, they deal with that situation, and like it's just not going very well. Eve's, of course, her ability to do like the force field stuff is cracking under the pressure because she can't handle it, because she's under a lot of stress. And it's just, you start to see like they're not winning. They never win. It's almost like infuriating, but it's almost just kind of funny to watch how difficult it is for all of them. And you see like they try. One of the characters punches, of course, the Sequid, the creature, which is a mind hive or hive mind or whatever. It causes all these creatures to come after him. And like, of course, one of the astronaut, which was left behind, that Shapesmith, of course, took over his body when he shapeshifted or whatever. He basically left this guy to die. And it really is the kind of craziness nature of this comedic nature of what is happening in Invincible, which is very much like an action dramatic show. But this is moments where Shapesmith is just, he doesn't think of what he's doing, and he's caused more problems than he is not causing, and that type of thing. So they're dealing with that situation. That's where the episode really kind of truly ends. But like I said, Rex and Duplicate and a Shrinking Ray are left behind to take on the Lizard League, who are proven that they're a formidable foe. Of course, the main guy, the Salamander, I think Salamander King or whatever he is, he basically is shot and killed by his like underling. Think of like Starscream when he destroyed Megatron type of thing. They do damage to these three individuals. Like I said, I don't know if these characters are actually dead, but let's just assume they're dead because that's what Invincible does. But Duplicate is, every time she is killed, she duplicates herself, but she's no longer able to duplicate herself, and she dies, I think. And then, like I said, Shrinking Ray is doing some damage, was able to kill, I think it's like Salamander or whatever her name is, and it cuts her in half. Or actually, I'm sorry, Rex cuts her in half. And she goes and, of course, is swallowed by the big hulking creature, which I'm sure you guys will let me know in the comments. But he, like, Rex warns him, he's like, she can, become big again, and he actually swallows her, which I'm assuming he's eaten her, which is pretty crazy to think about. I know I talked about this already, but it's like, if they're officially dead, I mean, what a way to start part 2, I guess. But, Rex is able to, he kills the salamander woman creature, cuts her in half, and then he uses his little whatever things he has to basically throw it into the mouth of that hulking guy, which explodes his, like causes his head to explode. which I thought was funny. And of course, he gets his hand eaten off, and he's about to be killed. It's pretty crazy stuff. It's like one of those things where it's like, oh my god, they don't top each other, like, after what happened at the end of season 1. But there's just, it's so much like, they come up with inventive ways to just do very disturbing things, and you see it here in this fight. And then of course, we'll see what happens in the next episode, but Rex of course has lost a hand, so I'm sure he'll have a robot hand. But the other big thing that we learn about is, as we saw in, I think there was like post-credit scene or whatever, as they usually do, Donald, the kind of underling to a Cecil, put his hand up, or put a knife to his hand, and of course it caused it to bend. And we come to find out that he is a cyborg at this point. He's a robot, whatever you want to call him. He's an individual that was, of course, killed. I'm assuming like his skin was, morphosized or whatever you want to call it, and plastered over him like a T-1000 or T-100. And then, of course, his memories were implanted into this creature. And I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, it's the world of Invincible, so we, of course, learned that Donald is he's no longer a real person. He is a cyborg, and that's going to be an interesting story to play out. And of course, how Cecil uses the young kid as kind of a pawn piece to his, Mark's Grayson's mother and stuff like that, and how he uses it to basically have Mark go to this like mission, the Sequids and stuff like that. And of course, Alan the alien wakes up, he survived and stuff like that. He is now like much better shape than he was. And of course, he meets Thadeus, Peter Cullen character, who is sounding rougher and rougher as he goes along. Definitely tell Peter Cullen is definitely rough in the voice. He basically, Alan figures out that he's a Viltrumite and that he is a deserter. And it basically is learned that, Mark Grayson, Invincible, is going to be important to taking down the possible Viltrumite invasion that's going to happen on Earth. And it's like, this leads off with that post-credit scene that talks about, he needs to be brought to Thaddeus to take care of this situation. But yeah, I mean, that's the episode in a nutshell. Like I said, I went through the different parts and like different fashions, stuff like that. It's mixed in as it usually is. But like I said, a couple characters are assumed dead at this point. One lost his hand. The other characters are dealing with the Sequids. Of course, Alan the Alien and Thaddeus have their own thing going on with Invincible. Nolan is still captured by the Viltrumites. And it's a crazy episode. It's exactly what Invincible is known for doing. It's, a 9.5 out of 10, to be fairly honest. Because it has a lot of, like, as crazy as this series gets, these episodes, for the most part, are very heartfelt and they're very grounded when it comes to character arcs and character development. Yes, there's the overzealous nature of the superhero thing, but the relationship between Deborah and Mark, the relationship that Mark has with the bug-like creatures, the mantis creatures or whatever, it's weird, but it feels kind of right in a lot of respects. And having this young kid, having her take care of the young kid, having all these pieces, him with Amber, him with, dealing with the Sequids, dealing with all this stuff, is still very human when it comes to like what he has to deal with. Like the fact that he forgives his father for the most part is a pretty crazy thing. I think we're going to see that whole the Viltrumite invasion and stuff like that. I think that's what's going to happen. But it's interesting that for 2 months, they don't really, like 2 months later, and they're not really mentioning Nolan's character outside of some small parts. It's really interesting. It's really kind of a unique thing. The fact that, this whole invasion is going to happen and they're kind of pushing it to the side for kind of a little bit of a side story. But it doesn't take away that Invincible just keeps chugging along, keeps doing its thing, and keeps being one of the best comic book shows that's still on TV. It's like, with that and The Boys and Gen V and stuff like that. It's just, I give it a lot of credit. Amazon is putting out some really interesting quality content, and this is just a really interesting, violent, crazy over the top, but really kind of grounded show in a lot of respects. So, but yeah, 9.5 out of 10 for this episode. This must come as a shock. Definitely a good first part or 2, episode 5 or whatever you want to call it. Definitely worth a watch. So yeah, there you go. That's my take on part 5. Thank you so much for watching. In the comments below, what did you think of the episode? Did you like it? Did you not like it? All that good stuff. Otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. As always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.